Well, hello, my friend. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for allowing me back into your ears. And if you're new here, a very, very warm welcome to you too. I'm so honored you're checking out this episode. Please subscribe and follow my podcast if you haven't done so yet. I'm very excited to welcome Manuj Aggarwal as a guest on the podcast today. Manuj is a global thought leader who has been in AI for 15 years and has 4 patents in AI. He has served clients like Microsoft, IBM, and more, producing $500 million in value for them, and his work has impacted over 10 million lives and has been mentioned by the likes of President Obama and Bill Gates. I feel very privileged that I had the opportunity to interview such an accomplished individual and thought leader in AI. I asked him whether or not we have to be afraid of AI, whether AI is taking over the world, and his answer was, it has happened already. He also says that AI is the biggest invention of humankind, and it will change pretty much everything in the near and far future. He doesn't agree that AI is a scary thing. I also asked him what we small business owners can do to embrace AI in a practical way in our business, and he gave 3 great suggestions. And at the end, he shares with us the trends in AI for the next 10-15 years. And he says, as humans, we should really stop thinking and leaving that to AI. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into this awesome conversation with Manuj Aggarwal. Welcome, Manuj. Thank you so much for taking the time to be a guest on my podcast. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So the first question I always ask is, please tell my audience, where in the world are you located? Because I have an international audience. And also one thing about you that has nothing to do with the topic that we're talking about afterwards.
Um, I'm located in Vancouver, Canada. So one thing that's not related to anything, I like comedy movies. I have 2 kids. Yeah, I can go on. I love traveling. So yeah,
Traveling in the real world or traveling in the mind or in the virtual world?
both actually.
Both. Awesome.
Mm.
Yeah, so let's jump in. So we talk AI today and how AI can help us, but I want to jump right in with the elephant in the room. So many people are afraid that AI takes over the world, but I heard you say on another podcast that AI took already over the world. So
Yeah, yeah.
we're a little late with being worried.
Mhm.
So yeah, talk a little bit about that. How can we as humans, because you compared it with fire, you said in the beginning people were afraid of fire too, and
Correct,
we
correct.
can use it both ways. So talk a little bit about how AI is like just when we discovered fire, for example, back way.
Yeah, yeah. See. Any invention that humans have made, it can be used for good purpose or bad purpose. So, as you brought up fire, so before the caveman, our ancestors, they started to learn how to harness power. They were afraid of fire, and once they understood how to start a fire, how to manage it, they noticed that they can use it for good purposes like cooking. Same thing with AI, like, and I can go on and on. You name any invention, we can make good use of it or bad use of it. AI is nothing else but a tool, just like fire or electricity. So if you want to use AI, that's great. It'll help you. If you don't want to use AI, all you have to do is flick the switch and switch it off, and it's gone. Right. So this fear about AI taking over the world, it's an irrational fear that has been sort of created from Hollywood movies and depiction of how AI is presented in our society. Yes, there are dangers, as I said, just like any other technology, but it doesn't mean that we should shut it down or we should be scared of it.
Hmm. Well, what most people are probably also very scared of is that it gets into the wrong hands, that like into, and that people are using it for really dark things, and that we have no control over. It seems bigger than fire, even to me. Like, I'm not necessarily scared of AI, but it seems bigger than Well, maybe not, because when we think of the human evolution, fire was pretty important, but it seems
Exactly.
bigger, let's say like that, or it seems bigger than the internet, or it seems bigger than let's say the book when they invented the book. So is that just our impression because we're sitting at the onset of this huge revolution, and looking back we would think like, oh no, it was just like when the book was invented? Or
Well, the fact is, yes, this is one of the biggest inventions of humankind. I think AI is going to impact the way that we evolve. It will impact the rate of evolution. It will change pretty much everything. I mean, as I said, and you mentioned it earlier as well, that it has already changed everything. Like, think back just what, 20 years ago, before the smartphone came out. Uh, we could have never imagined, recording these podcasts sitting across each other like thousands of miles. And now nobody can live without a smartphone or connected to the internet all the time. And that happened within 20 years. So yes, AI is going to transform everything. There's nothing that is not going to be disrupted by AI. But what I'm trying to say is that those are the good effects of AI. Every technology that comes out, if it provides 100% of impact, 95% of it is positive generally, and 5% is negative. And that's how it is in case of AI as well. So to counter those 5%, first of all, we need to rely on the overall goodness and the kindness of 95% of the population, which is sort of running the world all the time, right? The second thing is there are regulations coming, there are other measures being implemented. So right now we are basically at the infancy, at the beginning of this evolution of this AI technology. But as we make progress, all these kinks will be ironed out, all the fears will be addressed. And as I said, you know, whether people realize it or not, but AI is actually playing a role in this very interview, because the recording we are doing, it is being managed by AI to make sure there is no drops, there is no lag. We are the picture quality and the audio quality is great. So it is being used right now behind the scenes.
so then right now in the present moment, what would you then think is the real danger of AI from your perspective? So, like, what should people really be afraid of, if anything?
Well, for example, I was reading a report the other day. Some scientists, they actually created some of the most poisonous molecules
Ooh.
using AI. Right? They were actually a pharmaceutical company, and their job is to find molecules that cure the human body. But they just changed one parameter from +1 to -1, meaning it instructed AI to create, rather than molecules that cure, molecules that cause toxins. And they ended up creating some of the most toxic substances known to humankind. Now, these kind of things are what we need to worry about. But the other thing is, like, even if somebody is able to do that and they create this molecule, this is no different than the situation that we have today,
Yeah.
right? It's just that the bad guys will have more power to create new bad ideas. But also on the flip side, the good guys will also have more power to counter those measures. So it's a game of cat and mouse, which will never stop no matter what technology comes into the picture. That is just the human evolution at its.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the ones that I'm not necessarily afraid of, but I'm trying to figure out how to navigate as a regular human, and we don't have to go to the complete dark side. But what you hear often is that with AI, they can now imitate your voice, and there is scams around, for example, where people get phone calls that they think it's from some loved one from the family, and it's actually a scammer or whatever you call these people now that could use AI to create this voice. So I do think, like, yes, we don't have to always go to the complete extreme, but there is some risks that we have how would you see, because you're the expert, so I'm so happy to have an AI expert here. How would you, because that's one of the things that I'm thinking, like, or I heard that videos you can, with AI you can just put in certain people that were never in the scene, and you could put them in, and then you can put a case around, well, see, and I have proof this person did this and this. So
Mhm.
how can we as laymen figure out how to protect ourselves from stuff like that right now?
Yeah, see, once again, this is nothing new. So, for example,
Mhm.
let's go back a few hundred years when kings and queens and governments, they used to send letters through pigeons and horses, and they used to put a seal
Mhm,
on
mhm.
that letter to certify that it is coming from an authorized person. And we have read in history so many times somebody forged that seal
Yeah.
and impersonated someone. Impersonation happens even today. Like, so, people, without even using AI, they can mimic my voice and do all kinds of things. There is counterfeit currency all over the world. So these things are not new. The only thing, as I said earlier, the capability of and the
Mhm.
speed at which people can make these things is increasing, but you have to remember the countermeasures are also getting smarter. So if a video is produced, then I have other tools that can detect, oh, is this a valid video or generated by AI?
Mhm.
So as a society as well, we will start to change. I don't know whether you remember, but I still get emails from the Nigerian prince who's looking to transfer
Yes.
$33 million, right? So I personally know people who actually got scammed by
Me too.
that letter, right?
Me too.
So and that was like 10, 15 years ago when we thought, oh, maybe this is something real, right? But now we understand as a society that, oh, this is just a scam.
Mhm.
So as technology evolves, yes, there are people who will take advantage of it right away. But then we also need to be diligent. And as I said, once we start to understand these things, they become mainstream. We start to say, okay, these things happen in the world, and we need to be careful, right? So again, I'll give you a small little example. When the smartphone came out, there was no locking mechanism, there was no passwords. Anybody could just take your smartphone and enter your smartphone, get all your pictures and whatnot, right? And
Mhm.
then suddenly we realize, oh, this is not a good thing. Now we need to add passwords and fingerprint readers and whatnot. So slowly all these things start to get fixed. So this
Mhm.
is the same thing with AI. You
Mhm.
talk about the car. When the car was invented, we had to used crank to start the car.
Mhm.
There was no safety in the car. It was the body of the car was made of wood,
Mhm.
right? It was polluting like there was no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And now you can buy cars which are better than your home. You can actually live in this car,
Mhm.
right? So every technology takes some time to mature,
Yeah.
and every time there's going to be some smart bad person thinking about how to misuse that technology. Will have to be smart enough to say, okay, how do we prevent
Mhm.
that bad person from causing harm, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. But it seems sometimes like the so-called bad people are ahead of the time, so we're kind of like running behind it with a lot of things, like you all the examples you just mentioned were invented because the bad guy was kind of like more ingenious than the regular person who was a little naive and just thought, oh, it's just awesome, right?
Well, it's a perspective on how you look at life. If you think the bad guys are ahead, our species would have been eliminated many, like, thousands of years ago, right?
Mm, mm,
So because if you look at human history, at a very, very long term human history, just few hundred years ago, 99.99% of the population could not even afford food. We had to work
yeah.
16-hour days, 7 days a week in the field just to feed ourselves,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Crime was like, there was, I mean, crime was like, even in so-called developed countries, murder rates were high, theft, robberies were high. And now you have abundance of food, you have safety, you have, like, the life expectancy has tripled. So if you look at these indicators, you can really objectively say that humans are actually a good species. it's
Mm-hmm.
it's not an evil species. So we have to look at the data and then form our opinions. Of course, as humans, we are always anxious, stressful about the future, and we create these scenarios in our mind. But if you look at the data and the reality, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually pretty positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably because we don't have the saber-toothed tiger anymore that chases us. We're getting chased by other things, or our brain is doing that with us. Actually, you make a good point, because I recall hearing somebody who is a peace and future peace researcher and futurist, and he said we're living in the most peaceful time
Yeah,
ever.
exactly.
But when you turn on the news, of course, it doesn't look that way at all, and we're only having this short experience. And so another question I have is, these algorithms, they kind of like, they show us what we're already interested in. And I think this is also where it takes us into this route where we all think, oh, it's all scary, or it's all, the whole world is bad. And then we have this divide, because the ones who look into, oh, the world is bad, they get more and more bad, like examples, and then we have this confirmation bias, and I think that's run by algorithms. You're the expert, not me. And the other way, so if I'm an open-minded person, I don't want to just hear one-sided information. How can I overcome this, that the
Sure.
algorithm tries to just show me one
Okay.
area and not the other?
So, first of all, let's step back here, and think about AI as an extension of our human mind. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not something that is generating these ideas out of thin air. It is actually learning what is going on in our mind, and it is trying to replicate that. So, that being said, so if the algorithm is showing us something sensational, something controversial, something scary, it actually understands our psychology very well, because it knows we respond to that kind of material. Okay, but when you start to shift your focus, not algorithms focus,
Mm-hmm.
your focus towards more positive things, more instructive things, more constructive stuff, you will see that within a day or two, that algorithm really catches up to what you're thinking. It's spooky, because it will start to feed you that type of content. So it, again, I will say the same thing again, the technology is always neutral. It is what we think and what we do, that's what controls our outcomes. I don't think people realize how powerful we are in our thinking. you
Mm-hmm.
know they keep thinking that, oh, the technologies and the factors outside of their control are more powerful. No.
Yeah, I think even in other topics, we're thinking we're not powerful because it's more comfortable, right? If we're not
Mhm.
powerful, then we're not responsible. No, I'm just thinking of certain, like as a consumer, you can complain about these big corporations who raise prices or whatever all day long, but you're the consumer. You have the control. If you stop buying something, they're not gonna continue selling it because they can't. They want to make money,
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly,
but that
exactly.
would of course mean you would have to take responsibility for your actions, and so many
Absolutely.
don't want to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I know from you, because I did some research, that you grew up in India, in like not in a place where most people would think such a world leader and expert in AI would come from, although that might be might
Mm.
be a wrong assumption. Because I want to ask you, what is the advantage that you grew up right in a country where that was developing, and that may, well, now I think it is quite leading in science and education and research and whatever, but back then probably not. I don't
Yeah.
recall that it was back then. So what was the advantage growing up like that?
That's a great question, actually. Uh, well, the biggest advantage is competitiveness over there. The every resource is so limited. Like, I'll give you an example. So if you apply for a job, there'll be about 10,000 applicants for that job,
Mm,
right? So I when I applied for entrance into engineering exam, I think there were like 600,000 people applying for about 2,000 seats.
Wow.
So in that environment, you learn how to utilize even the minimal resource and use it to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't waste time, you don't waste water, you don't waste food, any of that stuff, because everything is precious and you use it. And then on top of that, you start to get very street smart
Mm-hmm.
on how to utilize those resources, how to multiply them, and do much more than than anybody can sort of perceive with such little resource. I think that is the biggest advantage. The other advantage is that society is close knit, so there's a lot of like there is no like financial net. So if you lose your
Mm-hmm.
job, there is no like there is no like government support you can get. But the family system, the neighbors, everybody in the neighborhood will know you. Everybody in your family, like if you have a problem, you can just visit a friend or family, and they will leave everything and sit down with you and listen to you. Like they're not going to say, oh, I have come back after 5 p.m. That's when my job ends. No, they'll say, okay, you need me, I'm here for you.
That's beautiful. That's where we would need more here in
Mm,
our world, I
mm,
think. Yeah, so I was also wondering because when I read on your website, you have a sentence there that you say because you went basically from India to the boardrooms of Fortune 500 companies, you became an
mhm,
expert, you're a thought leader in AI, and you wrote there, I shook off my limiting beliefs and created my own path. And I was wondering if you come from a place like this where you just said there's so much competition and you can't waste anything and you just have to, whether it's because here on a podcast we talk I talk a lot about limiting beliefs and I call this mental clutter, all this, oh, who am I and all that. Maybe it's easier to shake this off when you come from an environment like that than if you come from a comfortable environment.
well, I think the biggest thing is that what happened with me, and I'll use my example, and I've seen it in many other people's lives as well. Coming from that environment, I just didn't care about other people's opinions. That's basically what it is, right? So
Mm-hmm,
the limiting beliefs, in my opinion, they are not our beliefs. They are planted in our minds by other people. Now,
mm-hmm,
if you are scared of being judged or evaluated by other people, it is easier for anybody to adopt their beliefs because they don't want to upset other people. But if
mm-hmm,
you don't care about other people's opinions, then you can say, oh, okay, I think I hear what you're saying. I think what you're trying to say is I will never achieve that goal. That is your perspective. Great, no worries. Thank you so much for your time. I'll continue on and I'll do what I feel like doing. And when
mm,
you adopt that kind of mindset, then it is easier. It's not super simple, but it's easier to overcome those limiting beliefs because you can see the destination, you can see the goal, you can see if other people have done it, you could do it if only you can just ignore the ridicule and the criticism that you get while
mm-hmm,
pursuing your goal, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think well, that's for sure what I struggle with. I grew up with what would the neighbors say, but that's my mother's like kind of like what left my the memory I have from my mother. She basically said that probably once a day. What would the neighbors think, or what would the neighbors say? And so yeah, you're totally right. But then on the other hand, when you just said that you grew up in such a tight knit family or community, it's even more important what the people think of you or that they approve of you. And I know you went away because you live now in Canada, right? Basically around the corner from me, because I'm in Vancouver too. But that must be even harder than for me. And but now here we are, and it seems like you managed this better than me. Um,
See,
so.
that is very true. It is very when you are close with your family, it is very difficult to go against them. So you need a huge conviction. You need your
Mm,
conviction in yourself, and the goal has to be big enough that you can say, "Oh, the goal that I'm pursuing is worth paying this price." Right? That is the whole thing. In our life, we also play that game with ourselves. What is what is it that I want, and what is the price of that thing? Am I willing to pay that price or not? If people determine in their mind the price is too high, they will not pursue that path. They will give it up. But if you think that path is more valuable than the price, then yeah. And then here is another thing I notice, that people will always ridicule you. They will always laugh at you when you're just beginning. But
Mm-hmm.
when you get there, they'll say, "Oh, I told you, I believed in you. I knew you were going to do it." Right? So when you start seeing these patterns again and again, then you can say, "Okay, last time I pursued my path, nothing happened, and I it worked out. Let me see what's next, what's next, what's next," and you keep going higher and higher and higher, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's just sometimes it's really hard to tune out. I mean, obviously, I did it to a degree because my parents didn't approve either for me even becoming self-employed and moving abroad or whatever. But yeah, you really need a conviction and
Yeah,
a reminder constantly, also with the limiting beliefs, that there's always somebody who is against it and always somebody
yeah.
who is
Well, I will argue that you have overcome that. I mean, you are putting out this podcast out there. How I mean, there are billions of people out there. They all have thoughts, but they will never say anything, let alone put their face or their voice on the internet, right?
yeah, yeah.
So that itself puts you right in like 0.01% of the population.
Mm, mm.
Make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So you're studying human psychology and neuroscience. I heard you say too. And when I look at your background, the beautiful background, you're also into spirituality. So how does this give you an extra edge, or when it comes to AI or becoming an expert and becoming you're a sought after business consultant and all that? How did this all give you, besides the background of growing up in India, yeah, over what other people do and say?
So let me answer it in a couple of points. One, our world is ruled by emotions. Okay, so most people think we are rational beings,
No.
but we are highly irrational, emotional beings. So
Mm.
anything that happens in our life, let's say you are buying a car, you know, let's say you buy a flashy red car. Generally, we will say, "Oh, why did you buy this car? Oh, it had good warranty, it had good gas mileage, all of that stuff." But really, when you look deep inside it, you bought that car because of the way it makes you feel about yourself when you zip by on a freeway, right? So this is like that with everything. When we take a job, when we do a business deal, it's all about emotional connection with that other person.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start to meditate, when you start to go into spirituality, when you start to understand the human mind, then you start to understand, oh, this is how emotions play such a big role in our world. And now you can control your emotions. You can also see when you feel an emotion like despair or sadness or excitement, what is the root cause of that emotion? Where is it coming from? And not only that, now that you understand your emotions, you can also start to invoke certain emotions in other people. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say you are in a business, doing a business deal and you're sitting in a boardroom. You can really read what is going on in the minds of the other person. Are they skeptical? Are they doubtful? Are they trusting you? And when you can pinpoint that in real time, you can say, "Oh, you know what, like, I think we are having a good conversation, but it seems like you have some doubts here. May I clarify any doubts? Do you have any questions here? I feel like we are reaching a deal, but I think you are hesitating on the price. Like, do you have any?" So once you start to address these kind of things and sort of address their emotions and invoke those emotions, things become so much easier, even in a business scenario. And in any case, like, if you read uh, any sort of religious textbook or somebody who's into personal development, they all say everything starts with self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So when you meditate, when you go into these paradigms, you start to become self-aware, and that is the root cause of all the other sort of understanding that you get about yourself, about other people, about this universe.
Do you think that is the advantage that we humans have over AI, or do you think AI will get there, that they can kind of get to the point where they can read other people and have
I
that
don't think,
ability?
I don't think, I don't think AI or any other technology can really understand what emotions are. Okay,
Hmm.
because by the law of physics of nature, uh, the biggest question that humans have tried to answer, the biggest question, and all the messiahs and everyone who have come to this planet, what is life, why are we here, nobody knows,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody thinks that humans can create a technology that can decipher what humans are, I mean, that's just absurd. I don't like, we cannot create something that can, sort of like unpack us. It cannot become bigger than us.
Yeah.
It may be able to think faster,
Yeah.
it may be able to think more accurately, but the emotional side of things, that's what makes us human. That I cannot imagine there will be a person who understand emotions at that level, that he or she can create an algorithm out of it and say,
Hmm.
okay, now AI has an algorithm to replicate that emotion. I mean, what is an emotion? I cannot even put it into words,
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
alone into an algorithm, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of like, um, that's actually kind of nice, no? Because then we can I don't know, the mysteries of why we're here and what created us, doesn't just get exposed by some machine. I find that reassuring in a way. I don't know, in a nice way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, see, God knows what will happen in the future. I may be completely wrong here, but I can just talk about the things that I know today.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, you know, maybe it will reveal some things about our future down the road. Maybe it will help us find some extraterrestrial life on other planets.
Hmm.
Maybe it will do all these things. But the thing is that it will just provide information. How we feel about it, how we readjust, how we adapt, that's still our domain. That is still humans. AI is not going to tell us what to do with that information.
Yeah, yeah, we have to make sense out of it. And like we said in the beginning, you can make sense to use it for good, or you can use it for bad. I also read, and you said it also somewhere, that data is the new gold. And but then I saw on your podcast you say data is the new oil. So it's basically data is the future. That's what I'm getting, and that's where AI is really good at, because it can gather the data so much quicker and probably sort it for us so much quicker, but then we make the conclusion out of it, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, so how can we, as small little business owners that are not AI experts and thought leader like you, how can we start harnessing this? Where would you suggest we start?
So first things first, like, get rid of the fear and the misinformation so that you can start to, embrace it.
Hmm.
Start to look at your business and look for small repetitive tasks that take a lot of your time and energy, and start to offload it to AI. There are so many tools available. There's so much help available on that. And so as you start to offload, what you will do is start to experience is you are saving a lot of time, and that time will give you more creative energy,
Hmm.
and it will also give you positive return on that investment. So let's say you spent 10 hours figuring out how to do something with AI. After those 10 hours are spent and you have a solution, from the next month onwards it will start giving back 15 hours to you, right? So now you can start to see the benefit of that. The second thing is, as humans, we are not taught how to ask the right questions about ourselves, about our business, especially about others. And as
Hmm.
business owners, we are basically just a conduit to orchestrate other, with other people, and produce something of value. Meaning, we orchestrate things with our employees, we orchestrate things with our partners, we orchestrate things with our customers, but we never stop and think what is going on in their mind. What do they want? What do they need? So one thing I ask people to do is use AI to ask better questions.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask, what is my client thinking right now? And if I don't have a client, okay, I want to sell my product to a 35-year-old woman who lives in the suburbs of New York, who drives a Toyota. What is she going through right now? What does she want? And when you start to ask these questions, you'll get so many insights that will not only transform your understanding, but it'll help you in transforming your business. And then the last thing I will say is use AI to tell better stories. Because once you have all the questions and the answers, you need to become memorable to your audience. And the way
Mm-hmm.
to become memorable is to tell better stories. You can share what you went through. How did you overcome these challenges? And those are the things that people really, gravitate towards, because that establishes trust, that
Mm-hmm.
establishes credibility.
Mm-hmm. And so, how would you use then AI to tell better stories? Also by asking the right question or figuring out what the people are thinking, and then addressing that by making connections in your own life,
Sure.
something like
let's
that.
let's let's continue with that example. So let's say I ask AI, okay, tell me, what does 35-year-old woman living in New
Mm-hmm.
York need? So let's say they say, oh, she's overwhelmed. She needs a way to feed her family healthy meals and save time. So now I can go to AI and say, write me a story with
Mm,
2,000 words on how I managed to eat healthy when I was 35, and I created a system
mm-hmm.
or a nutritional plan to help me with all that, and
Mm-hmm.
describe all the ups and downs, all the mistakes you made, all of that stuff to arrive at that solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
now you have a very relevant story for your target audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. So it's almost, but so I'm wondering, this is very probably from your perspective, very basic use of AI. So you probably can use it way more sophisticated. So what are some crazy trends like this year or next year that you are aware of that are not even on the radar of us yet? Because this, I mean, I think the idea is really awesome. I will go and ask ChatGTP that question. um but I'm interested in, so like I'm always like interested in what crazy stuff is coming. So
Well, I think very soon, maybe not very soon, like maybe like in 10-15 years, driving by humans will be illegal. So
mm-hmm,
all the cars on the street will be driven by AI. I think in the next 10 years, there's going to be companies with one employee where everything else is done by AI. And some of these companies will be so big that they will be listed on public stock exchanges with just one employee. I think in maybe 2 or 3 decades, like uh, we will have healthcare systems where they will be able to manufacture a medicine only specifically for our DNA with zero
mm-hmm,
side effects. So there's not going to be any prescriptions for you to go and pick up at the pharmacy. They will actually make a custom medicine that matches your DNA in particular. Some of these things are already happening,
mm-hmm.
but as they mature, these things will become mainstream.
Mm. Exciting, very exciting. So I have one question. I actually wanted to ask that in the beginning, but then I thought, no, I'm going to listen first a little bit. How does it feel to be an AI expert? Do you feel excited about what all is coming, or do you feel more like it's a little bit of a emotional, well, maybe not emotional, but a little bit of a responsibility or a burden in a way too?
Both. I mean, I'm obviously excited because I've been passionate about AI for the last 15 years, and now finally a lot of people are talking about it. So it's exciting for sure, but it's also a responsibility because of these conversations. Because I never realized that people will have this much fear and misinformation about AI. So the first responsibility is to clear those doubts and get rid of that misinformation, because if people don't realize what is happening, this divide between the rich and the poor will
Mm,
continue to grow.
mm-hmm,
The only way to fill that gap is to have everyone utilize these technologies so that everybody can rise together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now I'm wondering, because I'm thinking, and I watched some interviews that you gave, and I think everybody asks more or less the same question because everybody, like you just said, is afraid of it. So, what is a question that you would want to be asked and nobody has asked you yet, including me?
See, what I will say is you need to understand that AI is going to be so powerful that it will result in a post thinking era. Okay, we have been focused too much as humans on thinking about intellect, solving problems, and now a machine that has an IQ of 1000, there is no way we are going to compete with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's just give up thinking, in my opinion, and just focus on the emotional connection. That's how human species is going to evolve,
Mm-hmm.
because the thinking is what leads to a lot of problems. I mean, even the Buddha has said the attachment comes from thinking about things and
Yeah.
desire and all of that. But if you get rid of all that and you just focus on the human connection, which is where our our true self lies, then that world is going to be beautiful, it's going to be peaceful, and it's going to be abundant. uh, those are the kind of things that people don't ask, because those are far fetched and it's outside of our imagination. But I believe in my heart that's where we are going.
But that's exciting. That would almost like close a loop because that's where we started, right? As human beings, we started as emotional beings, and only later our brain started to evolve and we became slaves to these thoughts that we then believe in and become limiting beliefs and self-conscious and all that. So I actually love that, what you're saying. That I think that is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where can people find you? So if they're intrigued, they may want to check out your services. I think you have online courses. You have a very successful podcast. Where can they find it?
Yeah,
Share
just
that a
just
bit.
Google my name or find me on LinkedIn. Let me know you heard me on this podcast, and
Yeah.
what are you trying to do with AI? And happy to
Yeah.
help. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. We'll put all the links in the show notes that I have. And thank you so much, Manuj, for coming on and sharing your expertise with us. I was very excited to be able to ask my own questions to an
Yeah.
AI expert and thought leader.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.